Let's talk titles. If you fail here, nothing else matters. Your visitor has already moved on. So I know I say everything is important, and the title also is critically important. There's very little fluff, there's very little extra wiggle room when you're doing online content. So even if you have written the best article that's giving, tons of value, if your title stinks, nobody's gonna give it a chance. Nobody's gonna bother to even try reading it because they say, wow, this title stinks. They've moved on already, right? So the title is like your book cover to your digital property. It's like the window, a storefront window, right? It has to attract, it has to invite, and in online content, it's just like everything else. It has to give value. It has to be clear as value. You can't have this mysterious title, this meandering title, just like you can't have, meandering content. It has to be to the point, unfortunately. Instead of saying, what would be the best thing, or you say the best thing is, right? So I'll show you an example here. These are two pieces I wrote. This is the first piece I wrote when I started writing on Medium. I love Medium. I write on it occasionally. And so I wanted to write a book about ethics, in AI. So it's a topic I find very interesting. So my title was Understanding Your Stance on AI, Ethics After the Fact, That's Okay, right? It doesn't invite, right? And look at the number of claps I got. I got 23 claps. Clapping is kind of a form of how much people like the article. So, fast forward a few months after that, I wrote a different type of title. Want to make $100 a month from your content and stop feeding the giants. So 323 claps, right? So very different type of title. I don't think I sold out, mind you, right? This is not selling out. You're just still, I think the first one was just not conveying what it was about. This one conveys what it is about, and maybe even stop feeding the giants. Maybe that's maybe too should be more focused. Maybe I would have gotten more claps. But the point being is, I got a lot more claps by giving a very clear title. So titles on digital content have to be clear and have to sell and have to be, this is what you're going to get, the best, the number one, 3 tips to do this, right? It almost feels like clickbait. It's not clickbait, because if you sell something in a title, you got to make sure it's in your content. Because if you're overselling in a title and you don't deliver, or you trick them in saying, click here and buy my 5-step class in order to get what I promise you, you basically lied to them. That's it. They're not going to come to your content, and it's not going to grow organically. So, it has to be to the point. It has to be inviting, right? But it should not be a lie. The perfect length for a title is 8 words. That's kind of like the golden mean in digital writing. I analyzed over 100,000 samples of titles, of best-selling titles on Amazon, and probably more than that on Medium.com, articles with most claps. And there's clearly that perfect range. I'm going to show it to you in a second. There's a tool on viralml.com that's going to help you with the titles, and I'm going to walk through some of the rules that are important. Let's just take a title, for example. Let's take this one, Understanding Your Stance on AI After the Fact. I'm going to put it in this tool, analyze your title, and it's going to analyze your title. It's going to use a variety of things I've found to be important, and it's going to give you a score. So it gave a 90% score, so a really good score. So the first thing it does is a skew. After analyzing all those Amazon bestseller titles and Medium titles, I found a pattern. There's a skew in the title. What is a skew? Well, I think that's worthwhile talking about. It's using natural language processing, and it uses a tool called Word2Vec. And it basically takes word vectors and translate words into numbers and calculates a distance between each one of these words. And it's found out that this smiling skew means, if you have, for example, an 8-word title. Actually, if I click here, I get an example, maybe simpler to explain. Here's a good skew. It's clearly making a smile, right? So here you see, it's from a children's book called Happy Hippo, Angry Duck, a Book of Moods by Sandra Boynton. But this is the title, right? This is what we're looking at. So the skew means that these words on either end, right? Happy Hippo, this is the distance from happy to hippo, are far from each other. That means they're not synonymous. They're very rich. They're not antonyms, but they're far from each other, and thus they have a lot of rich meaning. They convey a lot of meaning. In between, you have a book. This is a book here, right? They're not synonymous, but they seem together all the time. This is not that interesting. And basically, it's tying. So it's taking one concept, happy hippo, angry duck, and tying it with book of moods, right? And that makes for a really good title. That's Smile. So it's basically 8 or 10 word title where there's actually two clumps, two meanings in it, and tied together, right? And that makes for the Smile. So unfortunately, in this title, understanding your stance on AI ethics after the fact, that's okay. It was, the opposite. It was a frown. So it basically got dinged here. It gave it a bad skew, but it did well everywhere else. So here's what I was talking about, this length. Here you can see this is 10. So on average, the most popular, I think it's 8 here. You can see it's 8. The most popular title, the most popular number of words in a title is around 8. So if you could do it between 5 and 10, you're going to be good. You don't want to do it too short, because too short you won't be able to convey meaning. It's going to be too vague, and too long is just too long. It's just very hard to read. People are in a hurry, so you really want to hit them with that sweet spot. 8 to 10, 5 to 10. That's the most clapped and the best sellers. So go for that length. And here this tool will tell you, right? This is actually a little long, but it still says perfectly sized, right? It's like, right around 10. I think 10, 11, it still says stuff. But the best would be like around 5 and 10 is really good, right? And then it's also, this is interesting, it's also analyzing the first words seen in the most popular title. And it says, okay, it's found all the words understanding your stance on. Those are seen in very popular titles. So I get points. Understanding your, a popular pair. Understanding your stance, popular triple. And understanding your stance on, a popular triple as well. So if I open it up, in this tool, you'll see what the popular single starting words, the popular pair. So the most popular pair is how to. And this is interesting because by looking at these pairs, you start seeing a little bit what the type of articles people like to see online. How to, what is, how I, why you, this is, are you, what I, the best, why we, how do we, the future, right? So we're trying to see people want to get these tips, these hacks, they want to learn something, they want to get better, they want to learn from people who are better. They want to, they want to get get to the bottom of things. Yes, I want to learn it. I want to learn the best way to do something. And that's what's very interesting here. So, if you are writing poetry, or there's some subjects this is not going to fall into, but the most popular stuff, the self-help, the nonfiction, these are the words that you have to go after. So definitely use this tool. Look at it. This is the kind of things that you want to see in your title. So it has to be between, let's say, 5 and 10 characters, to the point. It has to kind of sell people in a way. It's got to be like a clickbaity title, but it has to deliver. That means if you're selling something clickbait, make sure you're selling it in the content as well, right? So it's a bit different. Clickbait usually they're trying to trick you to read something, and it's just some advertising. Here you're attracting them with a very powerful title, and you deliver in the content. So I hope this helps for your title.